Risk management seems like a waterfall topic, but does it still exist when you're using Scrum? In this video, we'll talk about what it is and how to manage risk in Scrum. I'm Andriana Marshall, professional Scrum trainer at scrum.org, and that is
I am Grand Scrum Master Scott, also a professional Scrum Master at Scrum.org.
what is risk management. So it is the process by which organization identifies, evaluates, prioritizes, and mitigates deviations from expected outcomes. So basically, in layman's terms, in waterfall, you're going to create this risk registry. You're going to identify what is a potential risk. You're going to come up with ways to mitigate it. And I'll go back and say that, the best way to mitigate a risk is by actually doing the work to mitigate it. If you want to be honest, this is someone with a PMP and all the things, but that's the best way you can mitigate risk. But Scott, tell us a little bit more about, how can we reduce risk in Scrum?
Oh my goodness. How do we manage, how we reduce risk in Scrum? Scrum is built into the framework. Yes. Risk management is not clearly,
Revolutionary.
I know, right?
Using Scrum to reduce risk. Thank you. Video over.
Risk management is not clearly defined in Scrum, not like it is in both you and I are PMP. So yeah, we had our risk management plan, but it's kind of subtle in the Scrum guide from the standpoint of it's not hidden, but it's baked into the cake, so to speak. And we call that a term called empiricism. Empiricism means we make decisions based upon what is known. Now, that is good for a complex domain that we're working in. So let's take an event, for example. Where might you see Scrum? You don't need glasses to see Scrum. It's there. You see, since it's baked into the cake and the cake, you can't mess this up if you wanted to, if you do it the way that it's all. Just follow the recipe. And here's a recipe for you. One recipe the Sprint has is a maximum time box of 1 month. Now, if we really think about that, that is a way to limit risk because we're going no farther than 1 month before we're going to inspect. That's empiricism that I mentioned before. Remember, empiricism, we make decisions based upon what is known. So at the end of that 1 month time box, we're going to inspect something. If we got it done, fantastic. If we didn't get it done, still fantastic. Well, Scott, what do you mean, still fantastic? Well, the question becomes now, what did we learn? Either way, it's a win-win situation. We learned what we can do, not do to get it done. And if we got it done, we learned that we did something right to get there. Either way, I look at it as a win. The key is what did we learn? Whether we won by delivering or not delivering. But remember, Scrum is all about delivering a valuable outcome. Time to get done is a way the sprint limits risk. And it also limits risk by, not having too much time go by before we may be disconnected with the stakeholders. We can have something done so that we could show stakeholders, hey, can you tell us if we're going in the right direction? Do we need to pivot and go left? Do we need to pivot and go right? Or do we need to go back to the drawing board? Yes, we want to know that sooner than later. Andriana, do you have an example that you could share?
Yeah, so I think to add on to your point, getting that feedback is really important. I think the other aspect, I think we all understand the marketplace changes that happened in 2020. So just about everybody had to adapt pretty quickly. So in that instance, we have to also be looking not just at feedback from some users, but like feedback from our product owner on like what's happening in the marketplace and how we can adjust to the changing climate. So I think for me, when I think of an example, I think of when I worked with, we actually worked at a company where we actually transitioned from waterfall to Scrum. So probably the biggest challenge was getting feedback from people. And some of the biggest complaints were actually like, you created this entire product that doesn't really work for our user base. We're not just strictly in California. We have schools and so forth outside of California, and the system doesn't really work. Like we make it work, but we have to do a lot of finagling and we have to do a lot of manual entry and so forth. So when we created a new product, being able to get their input on a regular basis, and I worked on a team that had 2 week sprints. So every 2 weeks, we're getting their feedback. We're making sure that what they need is actually available to them. And instead of, You talked about limiting financial risk. You spend a year on a product, you're spending a lot of money. And if it doesn't work, which was their previous product did not work for everyone, all their schools, then you're spending extra money doing all this manual entry. All right.
Oh,
Anything else there?
that's a very good example. No, I mean, beautiful example.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can go into the description and you can see how you can take a Scrum class with us, how you can get connected with us on the Discord, and you could just email us if you have any questions.